think we're live? Are we live? Jason, are we live? I assume we are because it's a little past 8. Oh, we are live, guys. Sorry, I'm slacking. It's a new process. Dave Brown here, jamplay.com. Except not jamplay.com studios. We're in the Berkshires, Pittsfield, Massachusetts. We are live, and I am teaching a course on fundamental skills and practicing them because it's important. Because those are the things that apply to everything that you want to do. So that's what we're going to work on tonight, and that's what we're going to work on for the next 10 weeks for every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. We got Jason Muntz on the helm, manning it. So if you have any questions at any time, you can shoot them over there, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube or whatever platform, Jamplay. You can shoot them right over there. Sorry, I'm going to keep looking over here just in case from you guys. So today we're going to start off pretty easy. We're just going to work on playing right hand and left hand stuff, just getting them both strong. So we got a couple exercises. We got about 4 of them. And I think we're good still. Sorry, we're having a little trouble with the audio. So we got about, about 4 exercises or so, give or take. Most of them dealing with the right hand, but we're going to start off with the left hand. It's actually going to be kind of a left hand, right hand thing. So we're going to kick it off with page 1 of the homework. And essentially, it's pretty straightforward. This first exercise is strengthening your left hand. We're going to have a couple variations that we can kind of check out later. But basically, that's the game. Essentially, what you're going to do is we'll be dedicating a finger to each fret. Okay, so for those of you who are new to the guitar, generally speaking, when you're playing the guitar, you're probably breaking it up into about 4 or 5 fret spans. That's the best you can do. And you have 4 fingers that are on the guitar, unless you're a Hendrix and you're grabbing a good, solid bar chord like that. But most of the time, you're just using 4 fingers, so those are the ones we're going to need to strengthen. So it's going to be really straightforward. It's going to be almost like a chromatic scale, but essentially, we're just going to go right through each note. And as you're going through, you're going to want to kind of pull your fingers off slightly after they've landed. But you kind of want to practice this a couple different ways. Yes, you want to lift them off as you go, just to facilitate change. But honestly, there's something about holding your fingers down and making sure you can do it that gives it a little extra grip on the hand to make it stronger, as well as just consistency. Because you don't want to get in the habit of kind of taking fingers off too quick, because then that can sorry, we got this good. We can losing my space here. Anyway, we're gonna push through. So basically, what we're doing is, again, like I said, we're dedicating a finger to each fret. So we're going all the way up. By up, I mean downwards to the ground. When you get here, we're going to shift up 1 position. But in order to do that, I kind of did a little mistake there. Essentially, you're going to go up a half step with your first finger. So you're always going to facilitate the change with your index finger. You can try your pinky as well, but honestly, your index finger is pretty consistent. It's stronger, so I would probably kind of go with that. Sorry, again, we're still having a little bit of trouble. I got a hot mic, apparently. Hopefully that's a little better. Still a new process. It's a new world we're living in right now, so we're taking it one day at a time. Super pumped to be playing, teaching with Jamplay again, and even though I thought it was over because I moved to Massachusetts, but they're kind enough to accommodate during these interesting times. So basically, like I said, we're going to go all the way down, and then we're going to go up a half step and continue, and then immediately come back down. And essentially, you keep doing that. So again, when you get down to the end of this one, you move up with your first finger again. And I keep messing up. I'm nervous. This is weird. This is a little new. So, so you're coming down. And you come back up with your first finger. And that's the gist of the exercise. It's pretty straightforward. We're going to continue all the way up to the 12th fret. So essentially the last thing you'll do is we'll be ascending on the 9th fret to the 12th fret. And on this last one, we'll come down and we'll go backwards, right? So then we'll come back down like this, and then always shift with your first finger. Anyway, so that is the whole exercise. It's pretty straightforward, not too much to think about. A lot of these aren't going to be the most exciting exercises you've ever done, but that's not the point. The point is that you're trying to get stronger, okay? You're trying to increase hand-eye coordination, hand-hand coordination. So we're going to do that today. Why not? So I'm going to set the click. We're going to go through this at a couple different tempos. You can practice along with this now. So grab your guitar, because that'd be sweet. And if you have, later as you're going through this, you can kind of take the time to go a little faster, go a little slower. Again, there'll be 3 different tempos that we're practicing at, so you're more than welcome to go back and watch this and kind of practice along with me. But again, it's just a click with a metronome, so you can really, choose your own adventure and set how fast you want to go. So, that being said, we are going to kick it off at 90 beats per minute. All right, so here we go. Here we go. Going back. Great. So that is the first exercise at 90 beats per minute. Question. I've always had a hard time playing along with a metronome. What exercises do you recommend? Well, these exercises would be great. Playing along with a metronome is really difficult for those, sometimes players when they're kind of getting going, you're more comfortable with like a full band context, or like even so, honestly, like so what helps some of my students sometimes is I have like drum backing tracks. So for instance, let's say you're trying to practice an exercise at like 80 beats per minute. You can always go on YouTube and find like a drum backing track that's at 80 beats per minute and try playing along with that just to kind of feel what it feels like to play with a band. I find that sometimes just putting it in context first will totally get the job done. And then go back to the click and see if you can hang with that. Again, you have to, part of playing with a click is really understanding rhythm as well. So understanding how to count quarter notes, how to count eighth notes, and incorporating your foot with that, so that, you know, or even rocking back and forth so you're constantly in the groove. Because if you're trying to play along with a click and you don't really have a solid concept of like what a quarter note should feel like, what eighth note should feel like, what triplets should feel like, and we're about to go through that in a second, then that's an issue, because everything is essentially on a grid. That's what the metronome is for. And if you don't know how everything fits against the grid, it can be difficult. Another thing, just general recommendation, is making sure that metronome's loud and in charge. So, you know, whether you got a, you know, earbud in, earbud out, whether you're putting it through a Bluetooth speaker, or, you know, if you're playing electric, you know, don't even turn up. Just play acoustically, so that you know that we're exactly where that metronome is. There's other things, but, you know, that's a pretty good start. Great, wonderful, grand. We're going to do it again at 90, and then we're going to do it again at a couple, well, seems like we're pushing a little faster than I thought. So we're going to jump ahead to 110. We'll try and do this twice here. I'll give you a hand and a little break, and then we'll try it one more time at 110 before we move on to some of the other stuff. Again, I think I even forgot to mention it, which should be pretty obvious if you're staring at my right hand. We're just doing alternating picking. So there's 4 notes on the string, so it's down, up, and you're continuing through. Let's give it another go. Here's at 110. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Great. We'll give our hand a little bit of a rest, and we'll do that again one more time. Just a thought I had on the metronome thing, and we got another question in a second, but I just had another thought on the metronome. Or did I lose that thought? I might have lost that thought. As you're playing through, no, I lost that thought. Maybe I'll come back to it. Okay, so are there any books that you would recommend for practicing? So, I mean, it's kind of a broad question. It's a good question, obviously, but kind of a broad question. It depends on what you want to practice. So as far as like what we're working on now, like Speed Mechanics is a very classic book. In fact, this I'll even admit that this exercise is definitely borrowed from that. It's just a great exercise, and there's other exercises that are consistent like this as far as like strengthening your left hand and coordinating the left and right. Honestly, again, it's a pretty broad question. So it just as far as like reading rhythms, there's definitely some books on reading rhythms. I did a course called Speaking in Rhythms on jamplay.com, so you can check that course out if you'd like. As far as books, though, I'm trying to think. I can't think of the titles, but I know there are some that are just literally reading rhythms, which is a really good thing that you can do. Speed Mechanics comes to mind. If I think of any others, we'll give it a shot. Let's give it again. 2, 3, 4.
This is Jason, everybody. Looks like we've momentarily lost Dave's feed. I'm trying to get it back. I will be back with you in 1 second.
If I have some time, I'll go back and do it again in a little faster tempo. But you get the idea. You're just trying to remain consistent with the notes. That's the thing. So I remember what I was going to say about practicing with a metronome. Basically, what you're trying to do with this is make every note crisp and clear. So if I'm going like too fast for you right now, that's not your fault. You know, there's a whole bunch of people watching, and I don't know exactly how fast each person can go. So you want to just make sure when you are doing this that you are practicing to the point where every note is crisp and clear. Every note is articulated properly. You don't want to just be plowing through this because it's building string, finger strength, but you're also trying to build accuracy. That's what we're going for. Now, as far as the metronome goes, some people when they practice, sometimes you're practicing it too fast, and it's always good to slow it down. So it doesn't mean you suck or you can't play it. Sometimes you just literally need to just go slower. And sometimes, on that point, sometimes when you're trying to learn something, playing it too slow can actually be more difficult than playing it just much more at tempo. See, a lot of my students, what they'll do is, you'll sit down and you got a piece that you're trying to work on. So maybe like Sweet Child of Mine intro or whatever. So when you go to practice that, a lot of the times, a lot of guitar players will sit down and there's no metronome involved whatsoever. Maybe they have decent timing, but you kind of just need to start it with it right off the bat, because otherwise, you tend to play the parts that you're good at faster and the parts you suck at slower, and that there's no continuity there, and that just sucks. So you really need to take the time to just always have it there, always kind of at least give it a shot in everything that you're practicing in order to get better and better. I'm still rambling about the metronome because it's honestly, it's your best friend. It's like, it's a love-hate relationship. You kind of have to get used to it, but once you got it, it will help. We're also going to do some more difficult exercises later with the metronome, utilizing that. I just want to make sure. It looks like we got a question coming up. I'm going to move on to the next exercise while we're here. Question: can you show an example of making the picking exercises melodic? Yes. So that's not what we're going to be working on today. But the concept, so what you could do is you could take a scale, and there's a bunch of different picking exercises that you could be doing. Right now, this is more of a left-hand exercise than it is a right-hand exercise. So in a second, we're going to go back and forth between two different notes. And I can show you, you can start, we're going to play open strings, but I can show you how you can incorporate the left hand. There's definitely scales that can be played. And a really good thing about that, like for instance, if you just take like a 5-note run like that, you can play it so that, I'm sorry. Where you have, so what I did there is I played the same 5 notes in a row, but I play them 1 note on the first string, 4 notes on the second string. Then I play 2 notes, 3 notes. That's the most comfortable because it's in position. Then I played 3 notes, 2 notes. Then I played 4 notes, 1. And so what that does is it kind of goes through every incarnation of like how you would have to cross strings, because really crossing strings during a scale is like when this can kind of get complicated. I'll try and address that later, maybe later in the course. But for today, we're just going to keep on keeping on. It's totally legit thing to want to work on. Okay, yeah, I agree. So we're gonna push forward because it's already 25 after. Who knew? So the second exercise has 4 different things. You have quarter notes, you have eighth notes, you have triplets, and you have sixteenths. So we're gonna do this all at 80 beats per minute. So I'm gonna get my metronome going. We're going to hold off on questions for a little bit. So if you have them, definitely keep writing them in, but we'll get to them a little later in the class. So as far as subdividing a click goes, let's just talk about how to count. So if you're just playing quarter notes, you're literally just playing downstrokes on each click. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, that's kind of boring. But you'd be surprised that playing just quarter notes, just downstrokes, and again, it's not that it's boring. It's you have to be consumed by making everything as accurate as possible. So when you go for it, it's actually accomplishing a lot more than you think. And again, you can practice it at slower tempos or faster tempos. We're going to keep it at a consistent tempo throughout all this. We got different subdivisions. So the next subdivision is eighth notes. How you count eighth notes is you just say and. So when your foot hits the ground, and again, I definitely recommend tapping with your foot, but when your foot hits the ground, that's a number, and when you come back up, that's an and so your pick's following that completely. 1 and 2 and 3. And, we basically just did that with the first exercise, so I'm sure that's not completely foreign to you guys. The next, let me just play that against a click, so that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And we're doing this on an open string because for simplicity's sake, there's something about just taking the time to get really comfortable with your right hand. A lot of players tend to tense up. So what I like to do is I like to take this area of my hand right here and I dig it into the 6th string. And again, the motion is kind of coming from the wrist, back and forth, up and down in this case, But if you're laying it flat on the table, it would literally just be, it wouldn't leave the table, it would just be going back and forth. So that's what you're doing. It's totally following your foot. Okay, and those are eighth notes. Triplets are going to be count 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So this has like a sort of a falling feeling, or floating. I kind of like to think of it as. Essentially, if you're having trouble like subdividing a click like this, you can always just think a triplet divides it in 3, so you can literally just count to 3 where everyone hits the click. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and so as far as alternate picking goes, since it's an odd number, you're going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. There's another version where it goes down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down. And you know what that's good for is it gets the consistent downbeat on the click, which is always good. But I think you'll feel like it flows a little better by going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Cool. So those are triplets. 16th notes divided in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The way we count it is 1 E enda, 2 E enda, 3 E enda, 4 E enda. So 1 E enda, down, up, 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 down, up. Okay. So that's literally, it's literally eighth notes twice as fast. Okay. So we're going to go through and we're going to play those. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the metronome, and then I'm going to set a timer for 4 minutes. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do each one for a minute, and then I'll tell you move on to eighth notes, and then we'll go through it a couple times. Here we go. Let me get this going, and I'll get the... okay, so here we go. 1, 2, just quarter notes. So notice I just hit one a little harder. Again, so it's not just about hitting it on time, but it's also about like consistency in tone, consistency in dynamics. You know, you can try and get softer, louder. Or you can just, you know, try and play consistent quarter notes. Ready for them eighth notes. 1, 2, here we go. And again, you don't want to have any tension in your hand. So, you know, especially once we've gotten into the 16th notes, you might find this might be too fast, and that's fine, no worries. Yeah, you know, you want to push yourself, but the last thing you want to do is have your hand start cramping up on you. And I found, yeah, basically, you know, I struggled with that for years, and I found that it wasn't till I was able to completely figure out how to get the tension out of my hand and just go, you know, as loose as possible. Until I was able to really gain speed and accuracy. Triplets, here we go. Final countdown. Cool, that'll do it.
Hi everybody, it's Jason again. Looks like Dave dropped out one more time. He usually comes back real quick, so we'll give it a second here. Looks like he's trying to connect back.
Apparently we lost the feed. So I'm just gonna keep playing and hope for the best. Mr. Month is typing, so I'm assuming we're almost back. And we're back. I'm gonna start over right after the exercise. So I guess I didn't need to read that part out loud to you. I just want you in on the action. Is that, yes, you can only do it for like 30 seconds. Maybe you should do it for 2 minutes, on each one, just because it's all about being consistent over an extended period amount of time. And that's what we're going for. So, somebody asked earlier, like, could you make it more melodic? So for instance, what we're doing right now is we're just playing an open string because it's right hand. But you could totally utilize this exercise to just play a scale. So for instance, if you just had a scale and you're going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then trip 16th. So you can go through different scales like that. You can also play it at random. So like 1 and 2 and 4, 1, 2, 3. So in that sense, what you're doing, and this goes back to that speaking in rhythms course, what you're doing is, I'm not even thinking about the notes I'm trying to play. Maybe I am a little bit, but essentially what I'm doing is I'm thinking da 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 da, and to really incorporate that to the point where like it's a language, like Morse code, and you're really training your brain, training your right hand to kind of think in real time, whether da 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 da, and if you can do that, you're in good shape. We're gonna do that again. We're gonna go a little faster this time, just for fun. I'm gonna go to 100 beats per minute, and then we'll move on. Actually, I'm just realizing it's if we have time, we'll come back to it. I'm gonna move on to the next one, but what I will say while I'm still here is, what I'm using right now is called tempo. If you get the paid version, here, let me just make sure it's coming up in this. You can't really see it. It's now, it's all blurred out. We're not going to worry about that. Basically, you can hack it. There's a really good exercise that I like to teach that really makes your time rock solid. It's like 4 on, 4 off, and what I mean by that is, for instance, with this metronome called tempo, if you get the paid version, you can set it for 8/4, and then you turn off the second 4 beats. You got 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that really forces you to be internalizing what the tempo should be. So something like this. You'll find out if you're rushing or slowing down almost immediately. I found that when, as far as problems that I've had in the past go, with timing, it's 2 things usually. It's, am I generally speeding up or slowing down? And when I go back and forth between eighth notes, triplets, and sixteenths, am I accurately subdividing that next division? Because a lot of the times there can be like a lag. If you're not good at knowing exactly what a triplet should sound like, You know, there might be a lag when you go from eighth notes to triplets, where it takes you a second, maybe a beat or two, to kind of really hone it in, maybe even more than a beat, like a whole measure. And you will notice if you screw up, because, you know, 4 clicks later, you're already behind, kind of a thing. Maybe we'll come back and we'll do that in a little bit, but for now, we're going to push forward. Thank you all again for hanging out with us. I know it's some crazy times. Hopefully you guys are safe, healthy, and playing some guitar, because why not, right? So exercise number 3, 3A, 4, and 4A are all basically the same kind of concept. So the number 3 is going to go back and forth between 2 adjacent strings. So if we're going down on the first string, we're going to go up on the second string. And we're just going to go back and forth between those 2 bars each, okay? And then we're going to go through each string for 2 bars. Right? We're going to work our way all the way down and then all the way back. Now, when you're playing these strings, again, like I was mentioning before, I like to rest here and I like to come through the hand, right? So left to right. But what happens is when you get to here, some of you might not be able to accurately hit that 5th string while you have your hand planted. Some of you can. I can. It takes some practice. It depends on what kind of guitar you're using. Like sometimes with like a Les Paul style, Gibson style, you can kind of rest this area right here into the pickup cover. That's an option too, so you can kind of get it out of the way. But you can also, when you get to the 5th and the 6th string, clearly you can't. There's no way to play that while still having your hand rest. So you're going to have to float for that one. So that's going to be the biggest transition, I would say. So we're going to go through this. We're going to go through it twice. And then the second time when we stop and start again, we're going to do this at 80 again. The second time through, 3A, is the exact same exercise, but instead of down, up, down, up, down, up, which is in between the strings, right? You're going down towards the first and then swooping back, and you never really leave in between here. The 3A, as well as 4A, is the opposite. So instead of going down, up, you're going to go up, down, up, down. So now you're on the outsides of the string, okay? It's pretty straightforward other than that, so we should give it a go. Yeah, I think I already mentioned the melodic thing earlier. Yeah, I did. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can kind of take your left hand and mute the lower strings that you're done with if you want. Good, so that's the first half through. That's just 3. 3A, again, is going to be up, down, up, down. So let's give that a go. And notice we're just playing this with 8th notes. You can definitely do this with triplets too. So like... You know, it's the same concept, 16th notes. So something to think about too later if you want to expand upon this. All of it's gold. All of it's worth your time. Here we go, starting with the upstroke and downstroke with 2 adjacent strings, number 3/8. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can either play that last one or not. So that's the idea of that exercise. Again, going back to somebody's melodic comment earlier, you're just going back and forth between 2 strings, so you could totally
All right, and once again, we're waiting on Dave's stream to come back. It does tend to drop out and then come back in. So we'll just wait a second here to see if we can't get him back.
get going into trying to make it a little more melodic, because that's what you're going for. And we lost my feed again. Oh my gosh. Sorry about the internet troubles, people. Hopefully, and we're back. So, like I was saying, I'm not sure exactly where we were lost. Sorry about the internet feed. It's cool we have technology, though. My point was that you could start to make those melodic. It's a little messy going back and forth between just open strings. So, for instance, you could even just 2 adjacent frets, same fret, 2 adjacent strings. But you can even start to make it a little more melodic, like you know, it's exactly the same exercise. You're just adding notes in, or you put the notes on the 2nd string.
Looks like Dave is still having some internet connectivity issues here. Hopefully he comes back quickly. Do apologize about this on your guys' end. I'm sure it's frustrating. But we thank you for
You
hanging
don't want to
on.
jump into the melodic thing too quick if you can avoid it. You really want to establish just having a nice, relaxed right hand. Question: how do you release tension and gain better tone and feel while playing? It's an excellent question. I find that doing this while walking around, kind of shaking out your whole arm, is helpful, right? So, and then again, you want to. It's almost a feeling like if you were like lying in bed and your hand fell off the side of the bed, and you know you're about to fall asleep, kind of a thing. That's how much tension should be in your hand, like just enough to hold the pick before it falls out. And I find that resting, instead of like hovering, when students hover, they tend to tense up. But if you can rest on a focal point, that's why we were just doing the single string earlier. The third string, the G string, tends to fall right where the hand wants to naturally, or at least my hand naturally wants to hit. And so kind of just establishing that, because again, once you start adding all these different things in, you're gonna tense up. So it's worth just doing like an open string, walking around the room, and as soon as you feel tension, kind of let it go. It takes a while. Like I played for years, but like I had a shoulder injury, and I always used to tense up because of it. But it can be learned. You just have to really be paying attention and listening to what your body's telling you. As far as feel goes, better tone. It could be a pick thing. So you want to explore different picks because they all sound different. It could be the angle at which you're hitting the string. So you want to kind of explore all those and you'll find that, and I noticed this too, like basically like if to get rid of the tension, what I did was if I'm starting neutral here, I have the pick leaning down towards the ground and then slightly up towards the headstock. So the right end is back. That specific area of hit tends to be the least amount of tension for me. And so just thinking about that, all that can come with tone. Tone comes with time. It's just getting familiar of, how to finesse both your left hand and right hand, like depending on where, if you're too far back on the fret and not up on the fret, it can sound different. There's a bunch of factors that goes into tone. But I find that good tone tends to come with the more relaxed you are, the better you feel. We got another question. When practicing a song with a metronome, how do you handle tempo changes? Well, most songs don't have a tempo change. I'm trying to think of an example that does. There are songs that like switch. There are songs that switch time signatures. For instance, like Zeppelin's Ocean starts and goes back and forth between 7/8 and 4/4, and at the end it goes in 12/8. But those are all actually pretty consistent with the same click. So there's not a lot of songs that do a tempo change. If you think of them, you can ask. Carry On and Wayward Son. Okay, so yeah, I would have to go through and listen to exactly how dramatic of a change it is. I'm trying to think. I'm definitely familiar with the song. It's just been a minute, and I'm trying to think of what part of the song it changes on. There's really, honestly, that can be a difficult thing. Other than just, you kind of have to internalize both tempos. Unless there's some sort of reference you have in your initial click, the initial tempo that you're working on, where like maybe it goes to a triplet feel or something like that. You kind of just have to establish that. There's not. I don't really have a good answer for that. You got me. That was a really good question. Sorry, but I will say, if they have DAW, they can animate tempo changes in a click. Yeah, that's true too. So you can, if you have what a DAW is, again, it's a recording software. So in theory, like if you set a certain amount of measures, you could have a tempo change on that. This metronome actually tempo, I think you have to get the, I think you have to pay for, whatever metronome you get. I'd recommend tempo. That's one of my favorites. It's worth the $3 to upgrade, in my opinion. You can do the bar of 8. So you can do 4 on, 4 off. You can also create a set list with this one. And then there's another option here that says Automator. And what you can do is you can, this is exactly how you would do it. I was thinking it was only by time. So you can either set it by a number of bars or a number of by time, okay? So for instance, if you set it by bars, if you know the first section of Carry Onward Way is the 32 bars or whatever it is, and then then it goes up 20 clicks. You can literally set that for that. So that's your answer right there, the Automator on tempo. or the DAWs program. So we're coming close to the end here. I got one more exercise, so I just want to get through that. It's basically the exercise we just did, but it's going to be skipping a string in between. So we're going to go to the first string to the third string, back and forth. And again, like we were saying, like, you know, you can make it melodic. That's right hand is not going to be anything different what I was just doing then from what we're about to do. But keep it simple at first. Keep it simple, sweetheart, as I once learned in math. The KISS method. Here we go. You get the idea. You know what we're going to do is exactly the same as the other one. We're just skipping strings. So it's 1 and 3, 2 and 4, 3 and 5, 4 and 6. Starting with the downstroke first. We'll take a break, and then we'll do it with upstrokes. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. So obviously the challenge here is skipping over the string in between, not hitting that. Oh, got me. Apparently I need to work on that transition right there. Amateur hour. Okay, great. I promise I won't suck as much next time. I'm trying not to look at my right hand. You might find that you want to stare at your right hand, and the better you get at it, you want to try and not look at it, because you want to be able to approach the guitar like a blind person, in the sense that you want to see with your hands more than you see with your eyes, because your hands will always have that right there. So we're going to say last call for questions. If anybody has any questions, please let us know. Let Jason know. Happy to answer them. This is the first week. We got 9 more weeks of different topics, all relating to just getting stronger in general. Whether it's hammer-ons, pull-off slides, all that fun stuff. And this is Tuesday. Thursday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard. I'm also teaching another course, Jam of the Week, where we just take another progression and we talk about what you can do with it. I'll teach you fun things that you could do with it, but I'll also talk about how I determined, came up with those ideas. And, if you have any questions on how you could approach it, the idea is that you would just be, replicating the before times when you used to get together with your buddies and somebody would call out a progression. Just kind of practicing taking on new material. So be sure to join me on Thursday at 8 o'clock. But until then, we're going to do this one more time. Again, now we're going to start with an upstroke. And I promise I'm going to stare at my right hand so I don't screw up on you. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. That's all it took. Just a little love and attention. We're going one more time through. get the idea. All of those, again, can be practiced at different tempos. You could do that same exercise with triplets, like I said, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a... You can use it to practice sixes when it's going back and forth between two strings. You can do thirds. There's a bunch of ways to kind of make these melodic now that I think about it. There is no more questions. Good. I didn't want to answer them anyway, man. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. This is Dave Brown here with jamplay.com. Super pumped to be hanging with you guys during this whole thing. Always around for you. You can message me at jamplay.com, Dave Brown's Music, or davebrownsmusic@gmail. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. I'm not going anywhere. Massachusetts just got pushed back to the 18th, so I'm definitely got some time. So hopefully you do too. Hopefully you take the time to practice. And I think that will do it. So I'm just going to play, because last time it was a little awkward as I just stared at the camera until it came out. Thank you guys. We'll see you soon. We'll see you Thursday.